It's another edition of Frontier Opening Bell and the very last edition for this week. Thank you for joining us on the program. I'm Temple Ashaju. Let's introduce our guests for this morning. We've got Ali Kansaju of Rich Frontiers Management, Nairobi, Kenya, and of course, Bosun Omofaye of Frontier Africa Report. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the show this morning. Quickly, let's look at the indexes that we're tracking, beginning with Nigeria, which was positive yesterday by 0.12%. Ivory Coast was positive for a second day now after a long while of declines in that index. It was positive yesterday by some 0.35%. Egypt maintained its positive position, up some 48 basis points. Nairobi Stock Exchange in Kenya now down like some 94 basis points yesterday, Thursday. And South Africa, Johannesburg Stock Exchange was positive yesterday by some 0.10%. Now, moving on to the headlines that we have in eastern part of Africa, we note the fact that Kenya as the sort of UK CDC group is to invest $1 billion in African businesses in 2021, that's this year. And of course, Nairobi Stock Exchange in Kenya is looking to expand via new listings from incubator program this year as well. Britam Holdings injecting some 1 billion Kenyan shillings into HF Group. And of course, South Sudan cancels visa on arrival for Kenyans on revenue generation drive, a new strategy that they're embarking on. Ali, let me come to you quickly with UK CDC's group looking to invest on $1 billion in African businesses this year. They're targeting Kenya, Ethiopia, Nigeria, a host of other countries. How significant is this and how timely is their new strategy in Africa at this point in time?
So, as you know, the CDC has been a long-term investor on the African continent for many decades and a very successful investor as well. And I think what they're talking about here is post-Brexit, an incremental and additional firepower for investment purposes. And I think if you've got cash, this is the time to be deploying it because you're going to get some pretty realistic pricing around your investments. I also saw another report earlier this morning on Bloomberg, which was saying that African private equity firms have about $2 billion to deploy. So there seems to me to be quite a bit of cash on the sidelines. It will be interesting to see when it is deployed and into which sectors. It seems agri-tech, fintech, and education are at the forefront. Extractive industries in the back at the moment because of problems that were faced last year in terms of divestments and in terms of accessing and getting to see and do due diligence. So overall, there is money on the sidelines. I think pricing is now much fairer, less frothy, and therefore we should expect to see increased deployment. Something that's reflecting investor appetite is the South African stock market, which has hit a record high for 7 sessions so far in January. NSE, they've been talking up their listings pipeline for a while. This story that you headlined was about the incubator side, following on Homeboys Radio, which was an introduction by listing, so it wasn't really an IPO. They're looking for a price discovery period over the next 18 months and then a possible IPO. But the biggest report was really coming out of the chairman a few sessions ago, saying that they had been in talks with the Treasury to try and bring government stakes to the stock market in the region of around $2 to $3 billion. Kenya, of course, is a funding shortfall, and therefore this would be a useful exercise and also, I think, a promising development. The issue will be around whether the government retains a majority stake and whether investors feel comfortable with that scenario, and we'll have to see how that plays out. But, you know, the government could sell some Safaricom shares. That would go like hotcakes, and then they might try and do the more difficult stake sales. Ethio Telecom, 12.5% increase. They cited the troubles as suppressing that increase, but Ethiopia, of course, the last great market in Africa for telecom companies, and Safaricom, Vodacom, and others are all looking at trying to enter that market. The real juice is probably in data and in the financial services side, mobile money. This was a promising result in a very difficult period that Ethiopia's been facing. Britain pumping in about $10 million into housing finance. That's housing finance is below the regulatory thresholds in terms of capital, and this will go to neutralizing that that position. And finally, South Sudan, as you know, has had tremendous issues. Electricity, I think they weren't paying for their electricity bill, the lights were switched off, amongst others. And we've already spoken a few sessions ago about them teaming up with Sudan to try and increase the oil production. Look, they've got serious challenges there, and I think they need to count on Kenya's support in order to help them navigate their way out of what is a very difficult time for the South Sudanese.
Bosun, I know you are a capital market enthusiast. I wonder if you would like to have a go with the Nairobi Stock Exchange story, looking to expand new listings this year aggressively, so said the chief executive officer of that stock exchange. Any particular lesson that some other African countries or markets can learn from this strategy?
Thanks. I think it's just about every jurisdiction trying to find out what is peculiar to each market. But one thing that is peculiar to a number of African markets and many African markets outside South Africa, for example, is that the markets are very small. They're a little bit, they are shallow. You don't have enough listings. So every exchanges on the continent are looking for new listings, by the way, whether they are public government enterprises or their private sector owned. They're looking to deepen the market. They want more derivatives. They want to trade bonds. They want to trade treasuries. They want derivatives. A whole financial supermarket of products that they want to introduce. And perhaps one of the ways, again, to get the market to be deepened is to introduce day trader, which the Nairobi Securities Exchange is working on. That is very, very good. Once you introduce the day trader, that will help the market from just trading for a few hours, then it's closed till the next day. So why not make it possible for folks to trade around the clock if they had a mobile phone and they are registered, then you have the firewall around your trading engine, and they can wake up in the middle of the night and want to make a deal. Ali would want to wake up in the middle of the night if he hears the deal is dropping somewhere. Why wait till the opening bell? Why not trade it on your phone if that is the case? So I think Nigerian Stock Exchange, others need to begin to allow this to happen so that the market could be a whole lot more deepened rather than just, have your cash period, trading period like you have in Europe and in the US. Have your cash open period. Then after that, you allow day traders to continue trading. It will allow a lot of price discovery. It will get a whole lot of more issuers interested in coming to the market rather than restrict everybody to just a few trading hours and until the next day.
Interesting. Now let's move on to the Western African markets, where virus fatality is on the rise, surpassing the global level at 2.5% versus 2.2% for the global level. And Lafarge Africa, which is a company listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, is looking now to divest 35% of its holding in Continental Blue Investments in Ghana. Morisson Industries in Nigeria is also getting a new managing director. Ghana is cutting down ministers to 85, all the way from 126 numbers of ministers. Ministries cut down as well by some 7 numbers from 35 to 29 specifically. Bosun, let me quickly get into wading on this as well. Virus fatality in Africa has now surged. Exactly what has fueled this difference, this margin at this point?
Well, Temple, if you allow me, I'll allow Ali to comment on that, because it's a whole lot of long story with a whole lot of chain. If you look at Nigeria, where fatalities is getting higher, Kenya is having its own issue of it. South Africa is the epicenter. So let me defer to Ali on that. But very quickly, let me touch on these 2 corporate news as far as Lafarge Africa is concerned. Lafarge is consolidating and looking at how to get a whole lot bigger and much better, looking at its 2 other main rivals, Boa Cement on one hand and the market leader, Dangote Cement on the other hand. We have no idea how much this particular exit is, but I think it's a bit of a lump sum that Lafarge could put on his books and then move on. Then the Morisson industry is into healthcare, household, consumer products like HCP, toiletry disinfectants, and all of that. This is one company that used to be a big name on the market in the 90s and all of that. It suddenly almost went aground. So we hope this new managing director will provide a new direction for the company.
All right, thank you so much, Bosun. Ali, let's get your thoughts now on the virus fatalities in Africa. And I'll also like you to comment on the Ghana ministers cutting now from 85 to from 126 to 85.
Yes, so let me start with the perspective on what's happening with the virus. If you look at the daily infection rate, we're running around 40% higher than our wave 1 peak. Dr. Moletzi at the WHO and Dr. Nkesasong of Africa CDC are both very concerned about those numbers. Now, in the first wave, the majority of cases were emanating out of South Africa, and actually the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa, ex-North Africa, the numbers were quite low. Now what we're seeing is actually South Africa beginning to bend the curve. The positivity rate is around 20% from above 30. But if you look at the top 10 fastest growing countries in the world, about 6 are in Africa. Admittedly from a low base, but what we know about the virus is that it's exponential. You can have 100 today, you can jump to 1,000 tomorrow, and 1,000 can morph into 10,000 very quickly. So firstly, I think, there was a lot of backpatting and everyone going how well we've done. That is now history. That is incorrect. Our numbers are growing very, very fast. With the case fatality rate, 21 countries are above 3% CFR, which is significantly higher than the rest of the world. And, bear in mind also, there is clear evidence that we're undercounting our fatalities. There was a recent report that came out looking in Lusaka, where there's one hospital where 80% of the deaths are processed. And they went and looked at these cadavers and discovered that 19.7% of all the deaths in Lusaka were COVID related. And if you look at the numbers coming out of Lusaka, it's nothing like that figure would imply. So there are tremendous concerns. And then, of course, we've got this viral mutant coming out of South Africa, which a lot of people are now concerned the vaccine will not work with that virus, and that's why there's been all this concern. So I think if I look at it, I'm very concerned. I think what I'm seeing is a lot of fires breaking out, whereas before it was one big fire in the south. Now it's sort of metasized into a fire in many southern countries, and you're seeing it develop. Nigeria numbers, I think, hit a record high yesterday, for example, and are growing very fast. And I think, therefore, for us here on the continent, we've really got to take proper measures, and and our challenge is going to be that, we kind of went into a lockdown when the numbers did not justify it, but probably helped. The question is, what happens when the numbers really take off? What are our authorities going to do in that scenario?
Okay. The cost cutting in Ghana, anything to say to that?
So I think, this is, I'm impressed. I mean, those numbers are shocking when you look at them. You couldn't imagine, in many respects, a bigger government footprint. And as I said, I think we've discussed before, the biggest challenge in Africa is the cost of our government. It's way too expensive in the 21st century. I mean, we don't need all these people. We need less people, more digitized delivery. And I think the statement that President of Ghana is sending is an important one, but he's going to have to do a lot more. And frankly, at least he started. Others have not even bothered. And really, they need to deal with that, because otherwise, you're never going to be able to spill out money for investment and development. You're just going to be churning it all out in salaries.
Thank you so much, Ali, for all of that analysis. Now let's switch our gears to Southern African markets, where the South African Reserve Bank kept rates on the repos unchanged at 3.5% yesterday. SA wholesale trade down 2.22%, 2.2%. Retail sales was also down by 4%. And of course, Zimbabwe gold exports earnings reduced from 1.06 billion dollars in 2019 to 997.98 million dollars in 2020. I guess it's some form of COVID-19 effect that has hit the waves there. Ali, I'll need you to speak to whichever is your editorial pick there between South Africa and, of course, Zimbabwe there again, before I go back to Boson.
Yes, so just quickly on South Africa, their left rates unchanged at 3.5%, pretty much in line with what expectations were. We've spoken about how African central banks are running out of room to cut further. They've probably got a bit of room, but they probably want to hold back and save some bullets. So I think that's the story. If you look at retail sales data, that's telling us, the economy is weak. The consumer has limited capacity at this point in time. I just want to finish off with that Zimbabwe story. And, there are a lot of reports talking about illegal exports which are not captured in the official data of gold. So that figure of 1 billion probably is not reflecting the accurate figure. Some estimates that I've seen are that there is an additional $1.5 billion of gold not caught in the official data, which is going out given the strength of the oil price. And then I saw another report saying UAE was processing $19 billion of gold out of Africa. Really, I think for African policymakers, they've got to work out how they're going to now formalize and bring all that gold under their purview, because it is a substantial amount of cash that could be going towards official channels as opposed to unofficial ones.
All right, thank you a great deal, Ali. Boson, you've got any of these items or headlines to have a go with?
Well, I think the retail sales wholesale rate in South Africa is showing a very good, showing a very bad trend of where things are heading under the lockdown and the whole of that. During the week, we talk about the Heinekens talking about shedding about 7% of the workforce. Had an interview on television yesterday night with the executive chairman of Impact Investment Africa, and he was really, really concerned about balancing saving lives and saving the economy in South Africa. A high-profile cabinet minister died of COVID-19 related infections in South Africa. Yesterday, it raised the whole issue again about where is this vaccine? Why is South Africa being an advanced economy in Africa? Why is he finding it very difficult to get the vaccine up? And even though within its medical pharmaceutical industry, there's some relationship with some UK or European-based pharmaceutical and laboratories and all of that. How is it going to be paid? How much tax will it be on the people? What is the cost for South Africans and all that? So I think there's a whole lot of problem. So just as Ali said, the SARB will leave rates unchanged, wait until March. Yesterday, the European Central Bank also decided to leave rates unchanged until March, trying to see how things get moving on into 2021. Thank you.
All right, and coming to the final set of the headlines on the show, now it's northern parts of Africa, where EFG Hermes concludes the fourth issue of its securitization program for premium. First Abu Dhabi Bank also acquired Bank Audis Egypt operations. 100% of the share capital of that company now goes to First Abu Dhabi Bank. Tunisia's BH Assurance 2020 turnover was up 9%. Libya's national oil companies to discuss funding with foreign partners for aligning or for the ailing infrastructure there. Then Sudan is now looking to spend some 1.02 trillion pounds for economic growth in 2021. Boson, I'll get you to make your pick from these three and to give us a sense of what your thought is on any one of the picks there.
I like the Libya story that they're asking foreign partners to support them. I think everybody seems to have woken up that a fractionalized and broken down country helps no one. But it looks like from all indications between the central bank of Libya and the National Oil Corporation. These look like two main government agencies now trying to lead the economic revival of the country forward. The political decisions will still be made about who's going to head the country and whatever. I'm not sure the political class and the generals have already decided, but things have to move on the economic front. And I think that's one good news, to also repair the ailing infrastructure. So if the oil money is coming through, even at this level of $50, $55 per barrel, they're pumping about 1.2 million barrels per day right now. They can use this oil money very quickly, which months ago they said that the proceeds from the oil sales will be posted in an escrow account, which will not be spent. I think that was good news then. It's still good news now. If they can do that and expend it on building infrastructure, let's not just keep an eye on Libya. We might just be pleasantly surprised that these guys will be able to put their crisis behind them, and countries down south here of the Sahara may just be surprised that Libya may just well overtake some of them if they're not really careful.
I do hope that that crisis is laid very, very soon. That would be a positive for that jurisdiction specifically, because of the crisis that had lingered on for so long in recent time. Ali, would you like to give us a final thought?
Yes.
EFG Hermes concluding its fourth issue in 2 years. The securitization program is a major story. We've been tracking that particular story for some time now.
Yes, I mean, EFG Hermes are a sophisticated operation, and the fact that this is the fourth speaks to that level of sophistication, not only in the Egyptian capital markets, but also in the case of EFG Hermes. Most of us in sub-Saharan Africa are aware of them. They do tend to look across the continent. The acquisition of Bank Audi's Egyptian operation is interesting. This has been telegraphed before. Bank Audi is a Lebanese bank with a solid franchise in Egypt, and I think First Abu Dhabi took the opportunity to take that off their hands, and I think that will prove to be a smart bit of business. Finally, Sudan. I think that's, this is in part, I know a lot of people criticize Pompeo and the outgoing US administration, but in the case of Sudan, they've made some moves. They've lent them quite a significant amount of money to clear their arrears, normalize their balance sheet as much as they can. And I think Sudan has an opportunity here from the financial side to emerge from that Bashir period finally. It was a very intoxicating revolution, full of promise. And I think, people needed to back that revolution with cash, and hopefully we'll see that going forward.
Ali, thank you so much for that analysis. Thanks for joining us on the program today. Ali Kansaju is the founder of Rich Frontiers in Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks a great deal for your perspectives on all of these headlines. Bosin Amofaye of Frontier Africa Reports. Appreciate your wonderful thoughts on all of these headlines.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching Frontier Africa Opening Bell today. Do have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.